Turn this, let it down. That's okay.
Thank you. Any announcements to say as well? I love it. You just got a text from Richard saying.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm not, it's okay. I'm trying to get so the Buddha image is visible behind me.
So you don't want this then?
Yeah, that's good. Thank you. Oh, instead of, well, not, the computer will slide around, but.
This has a lip on it.
Yeah, I don't know if podium. The computer won't stay though. I'll just have to move the computer. That's all. To the side.
Is this your most comfortable side?
This is okay. This is good.
Awesome.
Okay, let me see. We'll just have to move things around a little bit.
Thank you.
Okay.
We're up and running?
Are we live?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to make a few announcements.
Oh, okay. Yep.
And,
Please,
okay.
Nick.
Tell
So
me when
she
you can,
has to,
can you
have,
see me on the camera?
no, you have to come here, or we have to give you.
No, you stay right there. You are right
Let's turn, wait, here. Well, here. We're not trying to be professional here. This is, here, where's the,
there we go. I think.
where's the little lip thingy? Here. Thank you.
Okay, welcome friends. Sorry we're getting a little bit of a late start due to technical difficulties. I have a couple of announcements for you before Sister Aya.
Camera's on, just the computer.
Oh, on the computer. Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. Talking off in the distance. Okay, so number one, every Thursday evening at 5:45, we have a novena. And if you would like to, and that is going to be live on Facebook and on YouTube, please send your prayer requests to prayer@heartwoodrefuge.org, and we can pray for you. We also have every Tuesday at noon Eastern Standard Time, and every Thursday we have Dharma that is a little more community oriented, and it's on Zoom so we can all be together and hear each other. So please feel free to register for that if you'd like to join us for that. And if you're enjoying our events, please follow us, like us, and share us on Facebook. That would be so helpful. Also, if you'd like to support our the continuation of our mission here at Heartwood, there's a bunch of cool ways that you can donate. So if you go to our webpage and press that donate button, right now we still have matching funds. So now is a really good time to give your dollars to Heartwood because you're doubling your dollars. Also, we want to put a really big shout out. Thank you to all of you who are donating through our Amazon wish list. You guys rock, and we've been getting a lot of our wishes to come true. So thank you so much. All of you have done it that way. There's another way, Amazon Smile. If you go to, when you're buying things on Amazon, anything you buy, if you go through Amazon Smile, 5% of your purchase comes to Heartwood. The way you're going to do this is when you get on Amazon, you're going to go to that Amazon Smile link, and you're going to select Heartwood Refuge as your preferred charity. So please consider doing that if you buy through Amazon. And lastly, I want to invite you all to join us for the Final Friday Fun Night. We're going to be watching a movie together January 29 at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The way you receive your Zoom link to join us for watching the movie. And then afterwards, we're going to have a discussion about where did we see Dharma in that? And we get to share and get to know each other a little bit and build our national beloved community. So go to our website, click on the retreat link, and then just scroll down on that retreat link and you'll see Final Friday Fun Night. Register, it's free, and you will get an email with the Zoom link. So pop your popcorn before 6 p.m. We'll see you there. Thanks so much, friends.
So what is the end time of this session? Pardon me?
Usually 1:15.
1:15? Okay. Now let me see if I can set this in a way that's working for me. Yes. Everybody's well social distanced from me, so I'm taking my mask off. But we are in support of the CDC's recommendation for wearing masks, so please wear your masks in public. I'm not setting an ill example, I'm just trying to be more clear. And I wish I could have the Buddha image in my background somehow. I'm trying to get my seat. Such. Oh well. We can start now. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddham Dhammam Sangham Namasami. So thank you all for joining us today. I thank you everyone here for joining me. I'd like to continue or just kind of build on what's already been spoken about. Venerable Panyawati and Sister Clear Grace have embarked on a 50-week journey, and this is for all of us to join. And this is the transformation, our inner transformation. So the journey starts inward, and then it goes outward. So it's what the Buddha's teaching actually is about, is the transformation of our hearts. And then when we do that, it's reflected in our actions and body and speech. So all actions come from the mind. They all. And thought, intention. This is also called an action. It's in Pali, it's kama. Kama means action. So two of the suttas that we discussed recently, the first week of the course, Venerable Panyawati spoke about the Kalama Sutta, and that was two Tuesdays ago. I'm still kind of having the Buddha like behind my head is a little bit. It doesn't feel comfortable to me. The Kalama Sutta is a well-known, well-loved sutta, and the reason for that is the Buddha is really encouraging us to think for ourselves, to really examine for ourselves. Venerable Panyawati called it a litmus test to see if actions we're thinking about engaging in, is it harmful or is it beneficial? Is it harmful or beneficial for both ourselves and others? So if any of those three, for oneself, for another, or for both, if it's causing harm, then we shouldn't engage in it. Then we shouldn't do those kind of behaviors. We should, and if we have some kind of habits that these harmful behaviors, these are the habits that are harmful to oneself or to others, then we should abandon them. So it actually gives us a framework, the Kalama Sutta. So I'm just going to briefly just give the framework. And so we really need to examine, to know for ourselves, we need to examine ourselves and observe others. Is it causing harm? And if it's coming out of greed, hate, and delusion, he asked the Kalamas, what do you think? If we act out of greed, hate, and delusion, is that for our benefit or for our harm? And, the Kalamas said, no, it's for our harm. So then he mentioned 4 of the 5 precepts. He talked about, if we act out of greed, hatred, and delusion, and we lie, steal, engage in sexual misconduct, or kill living beings, so is that harmful behavior or beneficial? And of course they said no, it's harmful. So we examine. We don't have to engage ourselves in any of these things to know that these are harmful. But some of them we may, there's around speech. There's not only lying. There's harmful speech, harsh speech, divisive speech. And we might be, like avoiding lying completely, but we have to examine for ourselves, am I engaging in any of these activities? So the sutta that I spoke of last week is called the Conch Blower. Okay, let me mention if anyone's interested, the Kalama Sutta is in the numerical discourses. It's in the book of threes, so it's 365. And then the Conch Blower is in the connected discourses. This is here. And a little bit of sales for the suttas. It's my favorite reading, the Conch Blower. And that's in the connected discourses, and it's 42.8. It's in the I forget what samyutta it's in. And the samyutta to the headman. So that's number 42. So connected discourses to the headman. So both these teachings are given to lay people. And both these teachings spoke about 4 of the 5 precepts. I don't know why he doesn't mention alcohol, abstaining from alcohol and drugs. But that's the 5th. So we're likely to break any of the precepts if we're intoxicated. And this is why it's one of the precepts. So this is a similarity between these two, but the reflection is different. The reflection for the Kalama Sutta is about examining whether it's for your harm or benefit, or other people's harm or benefit. That's the litmus test. But if we've engaged in any of the harmful behaviors that were listed, then in the Conch Blower, he says, let me read it just briefly because I have it in my notes here actually. So anyone who destroys life, commits sexual misconduct, speaks falsely, takes what is not given, that's stealing. Or there's one missing, it seems like. That was 3 out of 4. Maybe I better get the book. But anyway, so any of those 3 or 4, if then there's this belief that they were bound for hell if they committed it. There was this one headman was a follower of this one ascetic, and they were believing that if you even committed these things, you're bound to hell. But the Buddha gives us an alternative to that, and that's seeing the harm we caused for ourselves and others. We're really actually having remorse for it, and then abandoning it, and then we transcend it. We transcend that unwholesome behavior. So transcending it is like not doing it again. Also, developing its opposite. This is another thing that is not explicitly mentioned, but both of these suttas talk about developing the 4 immeasurables or the divine abodes, and that's loving kindness, compassion, altruistic joy, and equanimity. So not only do we abandon and refrain, there's the reflection before we do it, and then not doing it. But if we've committed some act that we have regret over, we'll get more and more refined. I mean, like our speech will become more and more refined, but then we'll go, oh, I said something that was hurtful, or it wasn't quite true. And then there's this little bit of a twinge we feel in our hearts. And if we can make amends, we go to that person and we say, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it, or that wasn't exactly true. Please forgive me. I wasn't being truthful to you. So we feel this little bit of twinge in our hearts if we can make amends. And then the important thing is to abandon that behavior. So this process helps us to abandon the behavior, to change our lives, to change how we interact with other people. And also gives us a peaceful abiding. It brings happiness. So I wanted today to bring another reflection that's in addition to this. And now I think I have this graph here, a scratch paper that has, I at 4 o'clock in the morning, I get these ideas, and I'm writing on envelopes and things like that. Scratches the finger. I'm not so good with the computer generated beautiful graphs. Maybe some other time, some other lifetime. But anyway, so I was thinking early in the morning, there's this other teaching. It's a framework, another framework that appears actually frequently in the teachings. And it's called the gratification, the danger, and the escape. And it's usually referring to sense desires. To look at sense desires in under these 3 categories. And so, but I have here greed, hate, and delusion, which is where the unwholesome activities spring from. Oh, I feel bad about the Buddha just being on my head, and I still haven't figured out how to arrange things there. Let's go. All right. So anyway, so we have the gratification, the danger, and the escape, and we have greed, hate, and delusion, another down row. So each one of them, there's a gratification. Like obviously with greed, people, there's some kind of short-term gratification. We have to like contemplate, okay, my behavior, there's a short-term gratification from overeating, overspending, something like that. But that's actually the danger. The danger is that it's short-term. There's a sense of gratification, but this is one of the dangers. It's impermanent, it's short-term. And if we are really strongly motivated by greed, people break all the precepts through greed. We think about that. That's the danger. So we have to admit, yes, if the Buddha says, if there wasn't gratification and sense pleasures, then beings wouldn't indulge in them. So there's a little difference here. You can enjoy a wonderful meal, but to be indulging, to be acting out of greed, this is where it starts becoming harmful. So we have to really look at that. And this is where this feeling of, oh, this isn't helpful. This is harmful, actually. When we run into these, the danger. And the escape is what was mentioned before. We abandon the unwholesome and we develop the opposite. So the opposite to greed is generosity. So if we see we're wanting more from ourselves than we should be having, can we be generous instead? Can we be sharing what we have with others instead of hoarding it for ourselves? So that is part of the escape. Abandoning the harmful behavior is what's said in the suttas. This is to stop the harmful behavior is listed as the escape, but developing the wholesome is always implied. So we have the second one is hate. And there is, if you might think, oh, well, how can if you really get in touch with yourself when you're feeling angry or hateful, it's a really uncomfortable feeling. But there is sometimes a sense, a very distorted sense of gratification, which is like self-righteous or righteous indignation, or if we wanting revenge. They talk about revenge is sweet. And then you talk about somebody you love to hate. There's I don't know, it's really twisted. But somehow there's a sense that this hatred and, like getting revenge and, or just being self-righteous, oh, they really deserve to suffer or something like that. This is the distorted gratification. Okay, I can't even right now. I mean, I can imagine like sense pleasures, of course, gratification, but there is definitely with, that's why a lot of people behave the way they behave, and it causes a lot of suffering for themselves and others. So this is the danger. The danger is also, I didn't mention with greed, but breaking the law. I mean, killing other human beings is against the law, but this revenge, gang wars and even so-called legal wars that go on between nations. This is like this really distorted. Greed can be behind warfare too, definitely. But people out of greed, out of hate, will break the law. And then the danger is, the this criminal mind state is very destructive, certainly, and there's consequences, of course, of breaking the law. And then any kind of gratification you might get is very short-lived. In the long run, even your mental state is just not going to be good. And the last, so the opposite, or the antidote, sometimes they're called antidotes. The opposite for hatred is loving kindness, or metta. And the last one and the escape, of course, for hatred is to abandon, to see the harm you're causing yourself and others, to abandon it, and then to develop loving kindness, to develop compassion, loving kindness, any of the Brahma Viharas. It's even for greed. I'm trying to remember, I think it was equanimity is supposed to be the counterpoint for greed in the Brahma Viharas. But I think any of them, if we have mudita, or altruistic joy, and we're taking joy in other people's happiness, other people's successes and things like that, that would also counteract greed. But generosity is also, like as I was saying earlier, is a direct opposite. And delusion, the gratification of delusion is that we just check out. We're not getting in touch with what's going on internally, So we can do that chemically through narcotics or alcohol or anything like that, or we can abuse the media. People get really distracted looking at the media. So there's a lot of things that we can use to intoxicate our minds besides chemicals. So delusion is just like checking out, not wanting to be in touch with reality. We could be daydreaming. We could be thinking about, even if it's not comfortable, we could be thinking about something in the past and not really paying attention to what we're doing right now. Like, so what's happening with us right now? So, and so seeing that in ourselves, we can see greed and hatred more easily, but seeing the delusion in ourselves is harder. But I'm just giving some examples that are kind of more obvious examples of how we might be deluding ourselves. What to develop, its opposite is wisdom. So the more we develop wisdom, the more we're abandoning delusion. So we can abandon habits that lead to delusion and develop wisdom. So this is the gratification, danger, and escape. And if you read the suttas, you'll come across these three, and the understanding of these is important. But this is another framework that one can use to contemplate unwholesome behaviors and develop. This is the second part of the Buddha's teaching, not just to develop, not just abandoning, but to develop. So developing the opposites. So as I was saying, the two suttas have a common sequence that's talking about these four unwholesome behaviors: killing, lying, sexual misconduct, and stealing. And then those coming out of greed, hate, and delusion, all kinds of unwholesome behaviors come out of greed, hate, and delusion. But then the ending is talking about, let me just read this last part. Having abandoned the taking of what is not given, he abstains, he, she, them, abstain from taking what is not given, and abstaining from sexual misconduct, abstaining from false speech, and abandoning divisive speech, abandoning harsh speech, and idle chatter. He abstains from this, having abandoned, and then he says, having abandoned covetousness. So this is an old-fashioned word for wanting something that is not ours, or greed. He is uncovetous. Having abandoned ill will and hatred, has a mind without ill will. Having abandoned wrong view, he is one of right view. So here's the wisdom. So this is part of knowing for ourselves, examining, observing ourselves. We're developing wisdom. And then he's speaking to a headman of a village. He says, then headman, that noble disciple who is thus devoid of covetousness, devoid of ill will, unconfused, clearly comprehending, ever mindful, dwells pervading one quarter with a mind imbued with loving kindness. So this is the preparation actually for being able to practice loving kindness in a way. I mean, the loving kindness is a counter, and we can develop it, but to be really able to fully view ourselves with loving kindness, we can't have any hatred in our heart. We can't have any confusion. It's unconfused, clearly comprehending, ever mindful, pervades one quarter. So that's one direction. So I heard that somewhere I read that it meant towards the east. But somebody else said that in front of you. So you can start in any direction. I thought it was towards the north was the first direction. So it doesn't really matter. All beings in front of me, all beings to one side, all beings behind me, and to the other side, above, below, around, and everywhere, and to all as to myself. So this is a contemplation, but it's pervading. It's actually pervading. And your heart is imbued with loving kindness. This is the starting point. Without hostility and without ill will, just as a strong conch blower can easily send his signal to the four quarters, so too, with the liberation of mind by loving kindness, when the liberation of mind by loving kindness is developed and cultivated in this way, any limited karma that was done does not remain there, does not persist there. So there's a discussion what that means, but you're overcoming behaviors in this lifetime by abandoning them and transcending them in this way, by developing loving kindness, developing compassion, developing altruistic joy, developing equanimity. So developing these qualities in oneself is how we transcend them in this life. And whether that the karma does not bear fruit, this was the discussion, because it's limited karma, because there's certain actions that we do we'll have to pay the consequences for in this life. And if you believe in future lives, we may not be able to work it out in this life even. But certainly I can imagine if you commit a crime, you might be arrested for it. I mean, and so just being, you've stopped the behavior, and maybe you're in jail, you're doing the loving kindness contemplation, but you're still having to suffer the consequences. Maybe you get out of jail sooner. Certainly, ceasing the behavior will prevent you from further charges and further punishment by law. So, and some of us know this by experience. When I was a teenager, actually, I was involved in some illegal behavior, and I was arrested. And so I knew I was actually shoplifting. That was my crime, but I was doing other things too. So I learned actually from experience that was a bad idea. And then when I was in juvenile hall, but I knew that jail for adults was going to be a lot worse. So fortunately, I gave up the behavior, abandoned the behavior, but I had to suffer the consequences. So that's the limited karma. I've transcended that behavior. I stopped. I saw the error of my ways. But this is about a change of heart. When we cultivate the wholesome behaviors, there's no wholesome attitudes. If we have these wholesome attitudes, the four Brahma Viharas, then there's no room for the unwholesome. There's no room for hatred in our hearts if we've really fully cultivated loving kindness. And it talks about imbuing our own hearts first. If our being is imbued with loving kindness, there's no room for hatred. There's no room for unwholesome qualities. Let's see, I guess I have time. So there's this beautiful chanting that I'd like to share with you to end my time here with you. And then I guess there may be some time for questions when I'm done. I'll see how it goes. But I want to make also, as I go along, I'm going to chant the Pali, and then I'm going to say the English translation that's here, and then I'm going to talk about it because it's related to developing more specifically metta or loving kindness, but it does touch on the other Brahma Viharas. And this is a translation, I think it's by Bhante Gunaratana, or at least him and his students worked together on the translation. It's in the Bhavana Vandana, the Bhavana chanting book. Atupamaya sabesam satanam sukha kamatam pasitva kamato metam sabasate supavaye. Having seen that all beings, like oneself, have a desire for happiness, one should methodically develop loving friendliness towards all beings. So this is Bhavana's, Bhante Gunaratana's translation of metta is loving friendliness. But seeing in oneself, we see that we start with oneself, ourself, that all beings have a desire for happiness. Sukhi bhaveyum niduko Aham nicham aham viya. Hitacha me sukhi hontu. Majata chata verino. May I be happy and free from suffering, and always, like myself, may my friends, neutral persons, and hostile be happy too. So this is one method of developing loving kindnesses with the four persons, and some of you might be familiar with this, starting with oneself, people that are close to us that we love, like family members, friends, and then neutral person, who's a person that we don't really know very well, just kind of an acquaintance or somebody we don't have any strong feelings for either way. And then the hostile person. This is where some people say enemy, but that's not a very good. I like this translation rather, because I don't really feel like I have any enemies, but there may be people that are hostile or might feel threatened, or there's some animosity that feels like there's between. So we're looking at each class, and you starting with yourself, and then gradually we get more challenging. The people are more challenging. So to have loving kindness with somebody who's hostile towards you, or that maybe you feel hostility towards, you have to abandon the hostility, certainly. So wishing happiness for everyone, no matter what our relationship is with them. Okay. Imam him gama ke tam hi sata hontu suki sada tato parancha rajesu chakawale sujantu no. May all beings in this village, in the state, in other countries, in all world systems ever be happy. So again, we're starting, in this village here, and then going outwards further and further. This is another method. You could start just with yourself, and then people in the room, and then people in this town, and then people in this county, and then further and further and further out. All beings. Samanta chakawalesu satanante supanino sukino pugala buta atabhavagata siyum. May all persons, all individuals, creatures in all world systems ever be happy. Tata iti puma chewa arya anarya picha dewa nara apayata tata dasati sa suchati. So too, may all women, men, noble ones, non-noble ones, gods, humans, beings in the lower worlds be happy. May all beings in the 10 directions be happy. So this is like considering different classes of beings, and the noble is those who have attained some state of awakening. So this is in the Buddhist teaching. They talk about the noble ones as the Aryas, as those who have some kind of attainment in awakening. The gods, human beings, beings in the lower worlds is like lower states of beings, hell realms. All beings, no matter where they are in the scale of things. If you believe in other worlds or other states of being that you can't see, like heavenly worlds and hell realms and all. And it also includes the animals. So this is the body of the chanting, and then I'll just do it's 2 more sections. Ahang aware homi, abhyapajo homi, anigo homi, sukhiyatanam, pariharami. Aham viyamaham achari upajaya, mata pitaro hita satta, majatika satta veri satta, awera hontu, vyapaja hontu, aniga hontu, sukhiyatanam, hari harantu, dukkha muchantu, yatalada sampatito, ma vigachantu, kamasaka. May I be free from hatred. May I be free from affliction. May I be free from worry. May I live happily. As I am, so also may my teachers, spiritual guides, parents, and friendly, indifferent, and hostile beings be free from hatred. May they be free from affliction. May they be free from worry. May they live happily. May they be released from suffering. May they not be deprived from their fortune justly acquired. All beings have karma as their own. So here we see this first line, aware of whom we were saying, may I be free from hatred. So we want to really abandon hatred. So this is a starting point. Free from affliction or suffering, or this is said mental suffering is how I saw it also translated. And free from worry. There's physical suffering and mental suffering somehow in here. Maybe the worry might be the mental suffering. I heard a description of what worry was, and this was kind of like having ill will for the future, or a negative, kind of a negative mindset towards the future, because we're just thinking of all the things wrong that could happen, all the things bad that could happen to ourselves in the future. So it's like, and we don't know what's going to happen in the future. So, but this is a harm to ourselves that we're causing. So we need to abandon hatred. We need to abandon worry. And it says, may I live happily. And this is also, may I care for myself happily. I've heard a slightly different translation, pariharami, to care for myself happily. As I am, so my teachers, spiritual guides, parents, friendly, indifferent, and hostile beings be free from hatred, free from affliction, free from worry. May they live happily. May they be released from suffering. May they not be deprived of their fortune. And this is, some people say this is the mudita, or altruistic joy, wishing people to keep what they justly acquired, to be able to, also whatever wholesome good, rejoicing in their wholesome goodness, wholesome successes. So may they not be deprived of their fortune justly acquired. All beings have karma of their own, and that has to do with equanimity, I heard, because things will take care of themselves. I don't have to work. I don't have to get them, a parent does have to be involved in the child's behavior, but for the most part, people are going to have to work things out on their own. I mean, I can have some influence, but it's mostly what I have to worry about is my behavior. So, okay, so then the second part of this one. Imasmin vihare, imasmin gocharagame, imasmin nagare, imasmin vate, Imasmin chakravale isarajana simataka devata sabe sata sabe pana sabe bhuta sabe pugala sabe atabhava pariyapana sabaitya sabe purisa sabe ariya sabe anariya sabe deva sabe manusa sabe amanusa sabe vinipatika aware huntu Abhyakaja hontu, aniga hontu, sukhiyatanam, pariharantu, dukkha vuchantu, yatalada sampatito, mavigachantu, kamasakha. So this is, may all those who are in this temple, in this village, town, country, galaxy, may all higher beings, devas, who are in this place, all beings, all living things, all creatures, all persons, all those who have arrived at a state of individuality, all women, all men, all noble ones, all non-noble ones, all gods, all humans, non-humans, all those who have fallen into woeful states, be free from hatred. May they be free from worry. May they be free from fear. May they live happily. May they be released from suffering. May they not be deprived of their fortune justly acquired. All have karma as their own. So, if we develop these wholesome states, then we're going to bring happiness to ourselves and to others. And I think one of the best acts of kindness we can do is to abandon, any harm we're causing to ourselves, and any harm that we might be directly or indirectly causing others. So this is about developing, abandoning and developing. So I offer this for your reflection, and we have 15 minutes for questions, I think. We end at 1:15. So if anyone, I don't know, if there's people in the Zoom audience, what do you go to? We don't say radio audience. This is dating myself, isn't it? All those in the radio audience, do you have any questions? I didn't grow, I was weaned on the television though. So does anyone here have any questions or comments?
Can you let them know if they have a question online, they can put a comment on Facebook?
Oh, you can make a comment on Facebook or a question on Facebook, and then we'll read it, and then let's see. I see something here. Okay, no, that's something else. Will I be able to see the question?
No, we'll just read it out to you.
Okay. In the meantime, does anyone here have a question or something you'd like me to speak about a little bit more? You all know the information well, and you're putting it already into your lives. Yes? Which one? This one is the Bhavana Vandana. And it's from the Bhavana Society. Bhavana Devotions, that's another one. But you can find electronic versions, and also it can be purchased. I think it's now being published in hard copy. I think Snow Lion or some publisher like that has put it out. Yes, Shannon?
I guess. I'm just thinking, do you have any suggestions for additional motivation? Because in a general sense, I'm kind of like, of course I want to do this. But then there are still sticking points where I'm like, no, this person does not deserve loving kindness. I refuse. I will not do it. So I don't know.
Okay, that's a very good question. She was asking about a sticking point with the development of loving kindness, and this is where the hostile person or the person, that's a harsh word, but maybe someone who's difficult, someone we feel some or resistance to be. I want to develop loving kindness to all living beings except them. That person there. So we might have, I'm not pointing at anybody, I'm sorry. That person there. So we really take note of that. And it may be that we need to sometimes, my go-to place when I'm feeling upset and angry with somebody is I start loving kindness towards myself. And it may be to have compassion for the other person is an easier way to transform that. If we're hateful or angry or can't understand, like it could be somebody actually often it's the people in our lives. It's easier, like somebody on the television screen that is saying and doing these things that we can't understand, and we might want to hate them, and there's that distance. We've never even met that person, right? But people in our lives, it's often people really we used to love, or we thought that they loved us, and then the relationship takes a terrible change. This happens frequently with marriages and estrangement between family members and things like that, or friends that have falling outs, and this is very hard. Or it could be somebody that you have to deal with, like a boss, or somebody in your life. This is the hard thing. Oh, I'm thinking of something that a fellow monastic said, that she had this person that was actually persecuting her in a way, and it was like a landlord, and he was giving her a lot of hard time and threatening her, and using this position as the landlord really in a very corrupt way, and it was difficult for her to move for a while. This was before she was a monastic, so I'm telling her story as an example. But anyway, she said that one night she had this dream that this person was a baby, and she was holding the baby, and the baby bit her finger. And she woke up from the dream, was like, what is that all about? And she realized, just thinking of everyone was once a small, innocent child. It was one, so it helped her. And she ended up having to leave the housing that she was in. And, and then the person had nothing that they could do to her anymore. But sometimes you have to get out of a situation. It's not like we just endure situations of people are actually causing us physical harm or psychological harm. So it's not just like, okay, I'm admitting loving kindness to all beings, no matter how much they trample all over me and whatever they throw tomatoes at me or whatever they're doing. it's not like that. It's if we can change, a situation, then remove ourselves. That might be the best thing. And then once we're removed, then we might work on that. But the instruction is usually to start with yourself, and then people that are close to us, that it's easy for us to feel love for. And then the neutral person, and then you don't start out with the difficult person. You just kind of work at abandoning angry thoughts or hateful thoughts, or try to develop compassion or equanimity. You might develop the other ones in regards to that person, if they're like in your life and you have to interact with them, and you don't want to be every time you see, oh, them, there they are, they're coming. You try to avoid having this kind of attitudes. But so it is designed to start, the practice is designed to start with oneself, really loving oneself and accepting oneself. Another thing to think about is maybe with their behavior, have I ever acted that way in my life? And this is one way to generate compassion. Oh, you think, oh, yeah, actually, you might search yourself. Maybe you didn't. Maybe there's, never did. Or there's never that quality, whatever it is that they're doing, their behavior, their attitude towards you, whatever it is. If I've never done that in my life, maybe not in this lifetime. Am I capable of that kind of behavior? Am I really entirely innocent of that behavior? And not justifying the person's behavior if they are actually doing harm to us. We don't want to do that. But just to develop compassion and equanimity to see, okay, usually people are, like I was saying, like this, the greed, hate, and delusion, people acting out of these, it's I didn't mention this, but it's a ineffective coping mechanism, which is what we say in psychology. When someone's doing something like drinking or using drugs, this is a not effective coping mechanism. And they're trying to solve a problem or find happiness in a very corrupt way, very harmful way. So we have compassion for ourselves for other things. We look at ourselves, well, how am I causing harm to myself and others? Because of these unwholesome roots, because of confusion of, I think it's going to bring me happiness, but it's not. Eating that extra piece of cake, I think that's going to bring me happiness, but it gives me indigestion, something like that. So we see, okay, yeah. So they're confused. Maybe they've been abused in their lives. Maybe who knows? We don't know why they're behaving that way. Maybe it's not like everyone has come up of their own. So we have to work on our own, developing our own wholesome karmas and abandoning the other. So, yeah, so it is the hostile person or the difficult person or sometimes it's called the enemy. It's the last one on the list. Anyway, to develop loving kindness for. So if you work on the other ones first, then the last person can be your object of metta. But if you haven't really developed the loving kindness towards the other ones first, then it may be impossible. You can generally, like this chant is talking about generally all beings. They can be contained in all beings, all human beings. This kind of broadcasting it to everyone in this direction and that. all human beings. So there's a number of approaches to that, but it is certainly more challenging. So thank you for asking. Was there any questions from the? Anyone else have a question? All familiar with the development of the four Brahma Viharas? Got it down. So, well, I guess we can close then. There's nothing else. See if my notes. Something else. I have something else I wanted to mention. Oh, I can just end with the simile of the Goldsmith. Just takes a few minutes. So this is I've mentioned this simile last week, and I'd like to mention it again. There's a gold panner or someone gold washer, and they have all this raw ore that's been dug out of the ground and it's broken up into bits, and they have a large trough or pan, and they're washing, and they're pouring out the dirty water, and then they're taking big rocks and gravel and things like that. They're removing, sorting that out. And then there's a fine sand, and they're panning that out. So this is a simile of our own hearts or minds, where we start out with the coarser defilements. You might call it defilements or impurities. So our actions through body, speech, and mind. The mind is getting more refined, but there are some really coarse mental behaviors that we start out abandoning the coarser behaviors. And that's what these four or five, actually the 5 precepts are about: refraining from these unwholesome behaviors. And then we just get more and more refined as we go along, till we get to the point where we have the gold, which is the purity of the dross. At that point, the gold ore is put in a crucible, and it's heated up, and that burns off the dross, the finer, very fine. So this is a purification of our hearts and minds. So I want to say, don't throw the gold out with the bathwater. I said this last time, but please, when we're doing this work of purifying our hearts, don't forget to see the inner beauty. Don't forget to develop these wholesome qualities. So I'll offer this for your reflection, and you can end.